I'd like to call to order the opening of the Finance and Construction Committee meetings tonight with Mr. Lawson, who is Construction Committee Chair, and myself, Craig Lowry, who's Finance Chair. And Mr. Lawson, if you would, please open us with an invocation.
Let us pray. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you once again for giving us the opportunity to come and discuss the business for the public schools of Robeson County, dear Heavenly Father. Dear Heavenly Father, just be with the ones that are sick and on beds of affliction, dear Heavenly Father. Just give them a touch of your hand, dear Heavenly Father, because you are the great physician. Dear Heavenly Father, lead, guide us, and direct us and protect us. We ask this in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Mr. Simmons, make sure, are you there? Is he
Yes,
there?
I'm here.
Do we have any other board members listening?
Well, I did, Brenda called and said that she should be here in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. Any other board members, Mr. Cole, listening on? Mr. Grady is listening also? Okay.
I'm here.
Hey, Mr. Grady.
How's everybody doing?
All right.
Good.
Mr. Grady, we'll make sure you can hear everything. Is that correct?
Even your whispers.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll follow along with the agenda here. And first topic is My Future NC. Dr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. We have a short clip that we want you to take a look at that really explains My Future NC as an entertainment piece. Go if we can pull that up, please. Sir.
On the first day of kindergarten, parents and loved ones bring their little ones to school for the very first time. If you ask them, they'll tell you they'd want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, an astronaut. Unfortunately, 13 years later, not every kindergartner walks across the stage to receive their high school diploma. These students represent 100 average ninth graders in North Carolina's public schools. Of these students, 13 will not graduate from high school. 15 will graduate from high school but have no plans to enroll in college. That leaves 72 students who plan to enroll in college, but 19 of them won't enroll after they graduate from high school for one reason or another. 12 will enroll in college, but will drop out after their first year. 11 more will make it through their first year, but they will not graduate from a community college or college within the first 6 years. That leaves only 30 students. These students will obtain a college diploma from a community college or a four-year college or university. That's only 30% of the group we started with. What does that mean for us?
I'm Cecilia Holden, President and CEO of My Future NC. We're a nonprofit organization with a specific goal for North Carolina. By 2030, we estimate North Carolina's economy will need 2 million people with high-quality credentials or degrees. Right now, we have about 1.3 million. If our state's growth continues at its current rate, we will be short 400,000 skilled workers by the year 2030. That's because 2/3 of those jobs will require employees to have some education beyond high school, a high-quality credential, or a degree from a university or community college. A more educated workforce will attract businesses to and retain current businesses in North Carolina. More education means higher salaries for our workers. Our goal has unanimous bipartisan support from leaders in education, business, and public policy. That's because the statistics paint a clear picture.
39% of North Carolinians say they had attained less education than they had hoped.
Half of employers in North Carolina said they need more hireable workers.
Students who attain a four-year degree earn almost twice as much as those with only a high school diploma.
Most students who drop out will never return to finish school.
What is My Future NC doing to increase our educational attainment? We're engaging the public to raise awareness of the issue. We're bringing together stakeholders and sharing best practices from those already doing outstanding work. We're collecting and sharing data to establish local goals, measure progress, and promote data-driven policy. We're partnering to remove friction points and streamline our state's education systems to ensure more of these students make it through.
This is their future. This is our future.
Get the line. Any questions on My Future NC? If you remember, you signed off on a resolution in support of My Future NC and their attainment goal to increase the number of 4 years degrees, associate degrees, and credentials, and we can add certifications to that. We wanted to leave with that because that's what this discussion is about tonight. How can we support our people? Doing a good job in terms of people moving on to the 4-year university, going to college with associate degrees, and we'll expand that even more. Our focus has got to be on credentials and certification, and that's what this discussion tonight is about. Any questions, any concerns? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the Star Jobs Top 10 Education by 2019. Mr. Herman.
Let me say good evening to everyone. So you should have received in your packet just a printout of the Star Jobs projection. So this is the top 10 jobs that are going to be projected into the areas of North Carolina. And the next page, well, each page shows you Fayetteville, Lumberton region. It's about an 8-county region that this covers. So if you look at the advanced degree, just saw a demonstration of how many students that graduate in North Carolina actually go on and get those advanced degrees. Very few, 30%. Okay, advanced degree is probably a little bit lower than that. But if you look on that second or on the back of that page, you will see the high school and work experience top 10 jobs. You can just look over that. Anybody see a commonality in those?
H&B on there,
Say again?
heating in the air.
Heat and air? It's probably meshed in all of that.
Mr. Herman was brick mason, buddy, you can't find him.
Yep.
Amen, you can't. We just talked about that a few minutes ago.
Where's roofers?
Well, I think what they look at in the general population of that is they're going to lump it all in as construction.
Oh, okay.
I see the HVAC.
So, and then you have another series of handouts, and about the third page over in that, this North Carolina employment projections, you'll see a color-coded map of North Carolina. It identifies our region in the yellow gold tone. Everybody get that? Yeah.
Description.
No, I was
Everybody get it? Okay. It's just that sheet. If you'll look at that sheet right there, you'll see that there's 5 regions in the state of North Carolina that is deemed for the upcoming up through 28 projection of growing jobs, construction entities. There's 5 regions. And of course, you see that we are one of those 5. And general statistics say that approximately 72 to 74% of the students that graduate from the public schools of Robeson County don't go anywhere outside of the county. They stay right here in Robeson County. And I don't know if you have, know how much construction actually goes on outside of Robeson County that is done by people that live in Robeson County. And I'm not going to spoil the fact that of my age, but when I was in college in Greensboro at North Carolina A&T, I was coming home for the weekend, made a stop about halfway in Seagrove, North Carolina, and I went in the store, heard somebody call my name. It was a former classmate of mine, high school classmate of mine. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he asked me the same question. I told him, "Hey, I'm going home for the weekend. I live in Greensboro now and going to school there." I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He says, "Well, we've been to work, and this is a daily trip that they do to Greensboro to hang sheetrock." And he was not by himself. He says, "Are you going home from here?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, hey, I just hopped a ride with you." I said, "Well, who you riding with?" He said, "I got a whole van load out there that I'm on." So he hopped a ride with me, and the story is that they're still doing that today. Van loads of men, women leave Robeson County on a daily basis, ride Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro,
South Carolina.
South Carolina, all those places, because we are known in this county to have good skilled workers in the area of construction. We're known for that. So I wanted you to see that and to know that it's very needed. And I think that we need to really capitalize on what we are good at. How many of you know of somebody from here moved to Detroit, Michigan in the early 50s and 60s? What did they go there for?
Automobiles.
Automotive. So they were known for that. So why don't we capitalize on what we are known for and go that route? Another statistic I just looked up today says that, and of course they're running behind with statistics due to COVID, but in 2018, 99.7% of the concentrators, the CTE concentrators, and that is students who focus on a particular career. And it used to be 4 or more classes. Now it's 2 courses, a level 1, level 2 of a CTE can be a concentrator. 99.7% of those students graduated on time. How do we increase graduation rate? We get students into a career that they're interested in, give them a focus, they'll stay with it, they'll graduate on time, and they'll graduate with a credential or certificate that they can go to work with and make a good living. Thank you.
Mr. Harmon, Mr. Craig,
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for what you're doing with the Career Center.
Thank you, sir.
You and Mr. Mike, Mr. Matt, all the ones out there. I hear it all the time, every day. So we appreciate what you're doing.
Mr. Lawson, may I make a comment on that, what you just said?
Emmanuel?
I'm doing some remodeling, and I just asked those men, they're so good at what they're doing. They can take pure scrap and make something beautiful. And I asked them, I said, "How did you learn to do this?" The electrician, the carpenter, the brick mason said they got their start at Hilly Branch.
That's right.
And those guys are making mooga money. So I'm just pleased to say that we may not know it, but that Hilly Branch has made a difference.
It has.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Herman, will you talk about Maurice Townsend? You know, Maurice is an engineer
Right.
and a realtor.
Right.
He came from where?
He came through our program with the engineering program at the Career Center.
Already making over $500,000 a year.
And he's only like 21, 22,
26, I think.
26, okay. So I just wish I wish I knew it back then, what I know now, y'all probably wouldn't have been able to keep me here. Any other questions from anybody?
Mr. Herman, just echoing what's been said, that Hilly Branch Career Center, whatever you want to call it, that's one of the hidden secrets, hidden gems of this school system. And it's been that way for years. And with what we're here tonight to talk about is just something to further enhance that and just move it along. And I was going to say it later, but we know this is important. It's important because how many board members is here tonight? Every one of us. Every one of us. So that, it's important. The cabinet's here. Dr. Wisner, everybody that's here tonight that has a part in this year is, again, what we said that's going to play out later on. So it's a very important thing, very important opportunity that we need to be able to provide for the children, which that's why we're here now. So, but thank you again, like what Mr. Lawson said, thank you for what y'all do.
And I just feel like that those students that have those interests in those technical skill areas, they deserve to have the best opportunity that they can have. And I mean, we do the best we can with what we got, but we could do a whole lot better with something else.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have to keep in mind shortfall of 400,000 workers, right? As we reach towards that 2 million. And if we stay the rate that we're at on the same course, at 1.6, 400,000 short. So this conversation is critical. I was saying, I don't want to put on the spot, we met with principals today and we talked about, so how can we determine students' pathways and when should we start that conversation? Elementary, at career exploration, and we looked at a program that's going to help do that. So we'll have the data that really would tell us, yes, these kids really have that. So that was an important part of our conversation. Not only are we moving forward for the future, we're going back to lower levels so we know why and not just place kids in programs just to have them scheduled. And so we're working on a lot. The other part of it is, and thanks, Herman, is take a look at this as when we get to the point of what programs can we afford and why this program should be part of the new career center. That's why these documents are important and let you know on that. So we've got a lot to talk about. That 400,000 short, we can do something about that for students from Robertson County.
Okay, Planetarium Funding, Ms. Erica.
Good evening.
If we didn't need another acronym in the public schools of Robertson County, we have a new one. It's called SCIF, State Capital and Infrastructure Fund. So that is the grouping of all of the projects that were approved by the General Assembly in this new budget and includes the $5 million that the public schools of Robertson County has been awarded to help build the planetarium. We have progressed and had to submit documents, W-9, electronic payment, a copy of our organization's conflict of interest policies, and a sworn statement saying we have no tax debts. Now we're at the point where we have to complete a scope of work. And once we do that, we'll be able to sign our contract with the state and they will send us the full $5 million. There's no end date on when to spend the $5 million. We'll just have to do annual reporting as we go. And Dr. Williamson and I have discussed options for placing that funding somewhere in the interim to earn some interest. We'll look at the options we have with our local banks to keep that money separated and ready for use once we hear what happens with the new application we're going forward with the center as a whole. I can answer any questions anybody has about that particular amount of money.
And it's our intent, and Robert, you and I have had the conversation to help us with that scope of work. That's the final piece, right?
That's the final piece. That this completion of the scope of work, and we'll send that documentation to the will get us to the contract, and they said they hope by the end of February to have released all of those funds to the different agencies.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eric. Planetarium design, facility design, Mr. Robbie Ferris. And as Mr. Ferris is coming up, Ferris is from SFL&A Architectural Firm, and those have been on the board for a while. We've met him over the years, but I'm going to ask we start here, Mr. Randy going around, because we have some new board members here that I'm sure have never met him, and Mr. Ferris is approved as far as helping with the design and stuff with the planetarium, with the tech school, and looking at old plans and looking at new things and new ideas. So he's going to be assisting with the needs-based grant and some things along those sides. So, Mr. Randy?
Randy Lawson, District 7.
Monte Leach at large.
Henry Brewer at large.
Linda Emanuel, we met in another lifetime.
William Gentry at large.
Blaine Smith.
Terry Locklear, District 4.
And you know me, Brenda Fairley, District 2.
Smith, District 6.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferris?
Thank you. I put together a package for you that has a little bit of history, where we've been, and then where we are today. And then we can start the conversation tonight about where we go. What's going to go in the building is sort of the big question. So, and I apologize that this does not have page numbers on it, but I'm going to quickly go through some of the history. You notice this first, turn the page past the cover. The date on this first program, 2013. That was a long time ago we started talking about this project. And if the next few pages in the packet really just list out where the board was at in terms of its thinking at that point in time about what would go in the building. I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but back then we had a 161,000 square foot building. This first drawing is the site for it. That's what we were talking about, the site over at Contact. The board has the land there. We've done some site drawings. Now this came a little later. These drawings are the drawings for the site on 7-Eleven. And so that this did not actually happen in 2013. This happened afterwards, but I wanted to put next to the site the context so you can kind of get a sense of the difference there. We did several different designs for that site, looking at Planetarium, looking at the central office, the bus garage, and we actually never really looked at the career tech school on that site, but we do know that it would fit. And then this last drawing in this section was the actual floor plan for the Career and Technical Center. So at this point, we had an auditorium in the building. We had a large professional development area that could also be used by the community. And then, of course, we had all of the career and technical shops. One of the, and it was all the ones that you have at Hilly Branch plus some extras. And then we had some flex labs, or we call them business and industry labs, so that business could come in, put a lab in that was relevant to this community, and you could teach those programs at the school. Dr. Williamson?
Robert, before we get too far out, from the last meeting, we recognized by going back into our board minutes that we had not made a final decision on a site, and that is still the case. I had a conversation with Robbie that on our application, we would list both sites that we own at this point, and we did not see a problem with that, correct?
That's right.
I want to be very open, clear, that we have not made a final decision, and we're going to show both sites.
Okay, so, and if y'all have any questions, stop me, but again, this was the floor plan for where we were back then, back in 2013. So this was the original design. And then you see a rendering what that building was going to look like back then. Okay. And then that brings us to moving forward to August of 2020 and 2021, we started talking about the planetarium. We'd been talking about the planetarium, obviously it was destroyed, but we started looking at options for where it would go. There were a handful of options on the table and how it would get funded. We actually did some drawings. We did floor plans for a standalone planetarium. The General Assembly asked us for a budget. We gave them a budget. It was roughly $20 million for a standalone planetarium. And that was for all of the things that your planetarium director said that he would like to have in it. Where'd he go? Oh, there it is. And so that was what we brought to the General Assembly. And it was in and out and a lot of back and forth. And ultimately, as you've already heard, you were given $5 million, which will not build a planetarium, standalone planetarium, but it will provide us with a planetarium that we can put inside the career and technical school. And so we did some, between, August of 2020 and 2021, we did a lot of budgeting, and this is just a snapshot in time. There were lots of budgets that were done. There were lots of ideas that were done, mostly working with the General Assembly to try and get you that money. So if you turn the page, again, you will see a program document and the size of the building changed. Turn to the end of this page, it was down to 119,000 square feet. So if you remember, we started out with big ideas. Was it 109, I think? And it went up and down. I think the highest I ever saw was around 180,000 square feet. And now it was down to about 119,000 square feet. Looking at what available funding there might be, trying to match the building with the available funding. So that's where we were in talking with the General Assembly. There's a little sketch here of how it might, you see the round circle on this, just simply saying, if we did the planetarium in the career and technical school, that was what was done, where would it go? And so the idea was that it'd probably go on the front of the building, we'd make it a feature, and we'd have a separate lobby so that you could have the school functioning and have the planetarium functioning separately. So those conversations were taking place. And so that was the quick diagram that we did to begin to show how that might fit. Ken, did you have something you wanted to add at this point?
No, sir, except to say thank you for all the hard work you did to set the table for this. I really appreciate everything you did. Obviously, your design group, they came up with a really tight-looking three-page elevator pitch. It looked really nice. And the final product sure helped to win.
Thank you.
First,
Yes, sir.
Gavin and Ms. Cambridge, and I will go ahead.
Robbie, I know you, Dr. Williams said we'll figure both sides. We put the planetarium, back when we was talking one time before, or to garner some of those tax credits. I know they're not available at Comtech, is that correct?
That's correct.
I don't remember, they're not available at one of the two sites, and I can't remember which one they're not available at.
For some reason in my mind, I want to say Comtech, but I didn't know if they were available at 7-Eleven.
I know they're available at one of the two sites, because I remember looking it up, but it's just not fresh in my memory, but I can get an answer for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could have a bearing as to the final decision.
It could.
It would help, and it would help me, I think, and it should help everybody, I would think, if we get some type of tax credits for it.
And Dr. Williamson had a fabulous idea that I'm going to tell you about at the end. But go
I'm
ahead.
gonna ask, so the chairman is making reference to the new market tax credit. And that's still available?
It is available on one of the two sites, but I can't remember which one. So I'm sorry, I just don't remember.
Yeah, but I'm fine, just that is available to us, the new market tax credit.
It is.
Have a major impact.
Yeah.
Explain that, if you don't mind, delve into that a little bit, exactly how that plays out, Robbie, so everybody, the new board members.
So the new market tax credit program is a program that is set up to provide facilities mostly in rural or low wealth communities, and rural and low wealth together is even better. They like funding facilities that serve entire communities, like a career and technical school would do. So we would apply for an allocation, and if we get it, on the last two projects we've done, we got about $4.2 million net cash into the transaction at closing. So it's a substantial amount of money if we decide to go down that path. So, yeah. Anything else on that?
No, I just wanted clarification and a little explanation on it.
Painter?
In the new design you came up with, it was, just for curiosity, was new technology incorporated into this plan, such as, what's it called, the new solar program or whatever?
So we have some flex labs that we could incorporate programs like that, but we actually have a listing of everything that we're thinking about now. So we'll get to that at the end, and we can talk in more detail about that, because we do have a listing of everything.
I was looking at almost a 10-year difference.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, sir.
You got here on this page, the 119,000 square feet, that's the total planetarium and the tech school. Am I right, or am I reading that wrong?
So,
119,000, what does that include?
so let me-
It's got green at the top and then a little tree line.
turn to that page. That does include the planetarium, yes.
That's the square footage of both complexes, put them together, right?
That's right.
That's the square, okay, Mr. Hughes,
That's not the latest number.
that's not the latest.
No, I'll get to the latest one in just a minute.
Okay, well, when you do, Mr. Hugh and I had this conversation a while, I need to see visual. Do you have with you what we talked about, some of the square footages of our schools here in the county? Is that with your, and if he does, when you get to the square footage, what I had, Mr. Hugh, I did a couple of years ago, was just tell me the size of Lumberton Senior. Give me the size of Carroll Middle. And for me, it was like, okay, if you tell me Carroll Middle's got 125,000 square feet, I got an idea of how big that school is in relationship to what we're looking at building. So just, for me tonight, when we come up with whatever figure you're gonna have, if he could give us a comparison school before we leave, I'd like to get it tonight if possible. I know the school's not gonna look the same, but it still gives us, some kind of square footage idea.
Right, okay.
You said 119,000?
Well, the new square footage is more like 109.
Oh, nine?
So, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Are there any other questions before we move on?
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
So important to note that when we did this was, remember, this was just like a year to 2 years ago. And 2020, 2021, summer to summer. And note on this budget sheet, the cost had gone up from about $200 a square foot up to about $300 a square foot. That's a real important takeaway. And so we were up to about $82 million for the budget. And I remember talking to some people and they're just like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And so time went on and got your planetarium money and the General Assembly did their thing. We had a conversation with the superintendent and staff about a week ago or so. And we came up with another program, which is this last set of green documents, colored documents, I'm sorry, these program documents. And probably we take a minute to kind of go over that generally, so I'll go through that. On the first page, you see we have the administration area. That's about 3,000 square feet. And this room right here is probably a little bit under 3,000 square feet. So the administration area is going to be a little bigger than this room. We've got some resource areas, counselors' offices. This is basically your guidance area. And some student support and staff support areas in the yellow. the lobby, instructor workrooms, multi-purpose, well, actually, we took that out. Some project labs, conference rooms, staff development's out now, and then your MDF, IDF, and technology areas. That's 15,000 square feet. And those are spaces that are spread out really around the building. They support the building. You've got your media center. It's not real big because this isn't a traditional school with a media center in it. There are some media resources that need to be in the building, but not a whole lot. So we have 3,200 square feet there. You can see the planetarium is about 7,500 square feet. So we'll have the big dome. We'll have, obviously, you'll walk into a lobby. And to one side, you'll have your dome or your planetarium. On the other side, you'll have your science center. And then you'll have a little store and some restrooms that are all associated with that. So an outside group can come into the planetarium and not get into the rest of the building. So that's about 7,500 square feet.
Robert, if I may, one of the things that we did change, the original size of the dome was what, 75?
52 feet.
52?
Yeah.
And after we met and had a conversation, we realized that 40 would work, correct?
That's right.
What's the number of students that it could house inside the planetarium?
So that is a decision based on how close we want the seats and how much teaching area we want. I'll let Ken maybe talk about that just a little bit.
Ideally, what we want to do, Craig, is do flexible seating. We can accommodate different populations at different times. If we have another sort of pandemic, we can space out the seats further by actually physically removing seats and storing them. But the other advantage, it gives us the opportunity to do more than just your standard planetarium program in there. You can have performing arts. They can move the seats to there at the rear of the dome. Now you got a stage where theater groups can work, or a quartet can be playing music while you're showing like Wholesome Planets. You can put that up on the quartet can be playing it while it's showing up on the screen. And that would be one of many uses that this thing would have. I want it to be as flexible as possible. And that's why the other thing I was begging for is a flat floor for the dome. Because the one we saw at High Point, you recall, had a steep incline. That's crazy if we're trying to do motion teaching. You know, like what any good teacher is going to want to do in their classroom. You want to move around that thing. It's really hard to move around that thing up and down the stairwells, especially when it's dark. I don't care how good you are in the dark. Well, pretty good, obviously, but that's a hazard waiting to happen. And flat floors eliminates all that. So that's a very big thing, and it allows us to be much more flexible in how we seat. The other thing I wanted to bring up, because at some point it's going to come up again, is science center exhibits. I'm one of the best people in the country at finding low cost and inexpensive science center exhibits that are high quality, like places like NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. I'll regale you with a quick 20-second story. When Bill MacArthur returned here to do his post-flight visit, we all went to the back of the Science Center, and in there was a full-scale model of the Mars rover Opportunity, which was then rolling around on Mars. There an Opportunity we were both working at that time. He looked at me, he looked at the rover, he looked at me again and said, "How the heck did you get that in here? How is it here? You know, Robinson County." And I said, you know, very simple. So when we start to worry about the cost per exhibit design in the Science Center, fear not. We're going to be able to bring it to you high quality and low cost. I promise you that. So.
That was really important in making the budget work, because we originally had in the budget millions of dollars for exhibits, because that's what it costs if you go buy them. And Ken said, I can do it. I can do it a lot cheaper than that. So that's really good, because it would have blown the budget.
Mr. Gentry, do you have a question?
Yes. I remember the former planetarium hours, and I remember there not being a bad seat in the house. I mean, it was, you know, wherever you were, you could see with very good clarity and accuracy what the instructor, the director was pointing out. And I heard the differential in the size of the dome. Did that come about as a study of what's feasible and what's going to be portraying and with accuracy what's going to be shown?
Okay. The 40-foot dome allows us to have 2 classrooms full of kids in the theater at the time. And to, like you're saying, nobody has a bad seat. That's the plan. The adjustable seating especially will be able to make sure there is no bad seat houses, none of these like partial obstruction, pillar kind of things going on.
Yeah.
So we want to make it so that every kid has a loud and clear shot of what they're doing and what they're looking at. But definitely.
Mr. Henry?
It was brought to my attention that we, if it's feasible, that we consider a room that we could have, like each school's, give them the opportunity to put shirts, hats, or whatever that represents their school in a room that they could purchase. It would be a central location. And that the profits, if we decide, could go back to those particular schools that participated. But that would be something that I think would pay for itself in time.
So a school store, basically.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a note of that. I think any ideas that y'all have, I'd like to hear about them now and tonight, and then as you have ideas, just get those ideas to the superintendent, to his team, and we can try and incorporate them. So the process is, right now, we're building a program and we're submitting an application to get the grant increased from its current amount up to $50 million. We don't have to build the exact building that we submit in the application, and we won't. It'll change, for sure, between there. So you have some time to get ideas in. But I would encourage you to do that sooner than later, because there will be a point where, it'll cost money to start changing things.
Oh, and follow up. Also, it was mentioned that maybe we consider, and I talked to Mr. Brown about it, on weekends or whatever, after hours, we would have the option to maybe have 3D movie. And that would bring the public in, and, if we want to give it free, we do it free. If we want to charge $1 or whatever, just some ideas to take advantage of everything that we got.
That's great.
Brown?
There are some wonderful things being done now with laser programs, like laser Pink Floyd or laser Led Zeppelin, those kind of things inside planetariums. And we definitely have to sit down and make out the rules for these things and who comes and how much they pay or whatever. But that's obviously your decision, not mine. But I'd be happy to offer any of that extra programming to make the place more attractive and more of a Robinson County. We want to be able to say to the surrounding counties, you're cool and everything, but we got this right here.
We could add that to the curriculum.
To the edge of the Milky Way galaxy in 30 seconds.
Dr. Williamson?
Okay, 2 points. One, Erica mentioned the $5 million that we hope to have by the end of February, that we will put in some account that would generate funds. Our intent is to the Science Center to use those funds, whatever amount, to help with that. And so since it's part of that $5 million, it stays with that. Robert, I do need to ask at this point, because when we met, we said we'll leave it to this meeting, the seating capacity of the planetarium, which, like we know, is that theater. Have you shown us that somewhere, or do we need to have that conversation now?
No, I haven't shown it, and it really is what was said, that the 40-foot dome would hold 2 classes, but it does go down to the spacing and the type of seating that you have. So that decision is a decision that we'll make later.
Sorry, I misspoke. I meant to say, if you got classes of 20 kids per class, you can put up to 4 classes in there at one time. And you could do some creative, like if some elementary school, like St. Paul's Elementary School, wants to bring their 4th grade to the planetarium, they can get the buses and bring the entire group down. Half of them can be with whoever is running the Science Center, and half of them can be with me in the planetarium. I guess one thing we're going to have to talk about at some point, we start building this thing, is do we actually get more staff to help run it? Because I'm really good, but it's only 168 hours in a week,
That's a conversation for another day.
Yes, sir.
For that. But I do want us to have some estimate of seating capacity, because that's what this meeting is for, so that we can leave and process that. Give us an estimate on what we think that should be.
Yeah, I would really have to rely on Mr. Brandt to really tell us that, because planetariums, it's really more about how you operate it. You know, it's 40 feet in diameter. So how many seats you can get in it is going to be a function of the type of seats and the spacing that you have. So I would have to rely on his expertise and his operational experience. Like just in this room right now, we could, I don't know, we have 20 people in this room. We could easily fit 100 or 150, but we'd be a lot closer together. And so the planetarium's the same way. So again, I'm not trying to not answer your question. It's just that I would have to rely on his expertise and what makes sense and how close you probably put those seats. Because it's an operations issue.
But if we do it tonight, it is extremely important because we're gonna need to know, are you gonna bring 2 buses? Are you gonna bring 3 buses? Or, you know, and that's kind of varying size of school. You know, are you bringing 60 kids to this planetarium or are you gonna bring 90? So at some point, if it's tonight or not, we're gonna definitely have to get, to me, a pinpoint answer when we're looking at from the standpoint of a planetarium, how much seating capacity will it have?
I mean, that's a good point, because if you say I want to have 150 children in it, you probably need a bigger dome, right? But there's some downsides to a bigger dome. It's less intimate, you know, so that's a very good point. If the board wants to make a decision on that.
We're gonna be servicing the whole county, I'd say at least 100.
Mr. Randy?
Yes, sir.
Grant, how many would the old planetarium hold?
Yeah.
The old planetarium on a good day with a tailwind, 70. Now that's in a 30-foot dome.
Right.
So if you expand by 10 feet,
I'm thinking 100, 105 or 110. Where are you at?
somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get up with the architect who designs planetariums, who's helping us for free. Because I'm hoping he can answer my call here and answer the capacity questions. For a 50-foot dome, he can get X. For a 52-foot dome, he can get Y.
Right.
X and Y, I'll make sure I have those on your desk, Dr. Williamson, by Friday morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Dr. Manuel, Ms. Brenda, then you.
Mr. Chair, and I'm on the trail with Mr. Randy, but I would go 120 in case you bring 4 classes.
Okay. Ms. Brenda?
I think Dr. Manuel just answered, because I'm thinking along the line with Randy, because with it being that size, and if we do continue to go through a pandemic or have to do a pandemic, having 70 and old with the 40-foot, it's good, right where it's at.
Mr. Hugh?
Yes, school comparable size to 119. You got basically Lumberton Junior at 115. Carroll Middle School is a little over 101,000. And then Fairmont High, 116, and Red Springs High, 118. That's your main room, not counting the mobile units and all that.
Main building. Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Randy?
And Mr. Robbie, I'm counting on Mr. Planetarium over here, but in me saying that, and I understand, Dr. Manuel, what you're saying, but on the back side of it, to the part that I'm looking at, if a 40 works and you can do, and I'm just saying 95 to 105 and save that money, if you have to go to a 50, the cost isn't worth 10 more seats. That's what I'm looking at as your max. I'm saying 110, 115, 109, max on the 40.
Foot dome.
Right, on the 40 dome. And
Dr. Williamson?
Yeah, oh, no.
Get Dr. Williamson, then I can.
No, I'm just saying that's a good point.
Okay. Mr. Vontae, and then I get Mr.
Oh, no, now, Mr. Randy, you made a good point, but what is the cost difference between going?
I mean, we don't
Okay,
find out yet.
okay, all right.
There's a whole.
Okay, no, I just said, what is the cost difference, I mean?
Mr. Brandt?
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I was going to point out that you can do a lot of things if you bring 4 buses of kids. 2, bus A and B can go to the science center the first day, hour and a half. Bus C and D can go to the planetarium. And then if we have more spaces in that room, like a maker space possibly, then you can split the classes even further and get even more kids on site at the same time.
Right.
So it is easy enough to do in a 3-hour block, 120 or 140 kids even. You just divide them up, divide and conquer, basically.
Mr. Rob, before you go on, I wished I'd have mentioned this earlier. Folks, when we worked on the 15, and you probably all know this, but we worked on the $15 million grant a couple of years ago, the needs-based grant. Mr. Robbie assisted them with the plans he had as far as what we were doing then. So that's why he's here now updating the plans with the additional 35 million. So again, he's been familiar with this process the whole time, and that's where we're looking at trying to put those together with at least 50 million plus whatever. And so a lot of familiarity, and it's not like we're just starting. So a lot of good questions, but I should have mentioned that before we started. Bobby?
So let's keep going down through the program. The food service area, just one note, we don't currently have a dining room and kitchen in this facility. We do have a culinary arts program on the back page. This does not currently have a food service area like you would typically see in a school, because these students are not thought to be here all day. Now, there may be some seniors that end up being here all day. That's up to Dr. Williamson and to how you're going to run the program. Usually these are students that come in for, if you're doing a block schedule, maybe 1 or 2 periods a day. So they're generally not eating lunch at career and technical school. Now, having said that, you could add it. It just costs money, and you know, you've got to decide where you want to spend your money. So that's just something to think about. Getting into career and technical education, here's the programs that we currently have in here. And this is in the green down at the bottom of this page. We currently have automotive technologies. We have a 3,000 square foot shop, and then classrooms, material storage, part storage. We have construction technology, a little over 5,000 square feet for that. We have masonry, 2,500 square feet. We have electrical trades, another 2,500 square feet. HVAC and plumbing, 2,500 square feet. Welding and machining, 4,000 square feet. We do not have machine, tool, and die. We kind of combine that with welding and machining. There are some different equipment, but we can bring all that together. Actually, there's a mistake on here. Diesel and heavy equipment, we took that out, but I left the storage room in, so I apologize. That 250 square feet is a mistake. Okay, so I will delete that next go around, but we took that program out. We do have drafting and engineering, 1,200 square feet. Networking and IT technicians, so this would be networking program, 1,500 square feet. We don't have the computer engineering lab or digital media lab or advanced digital media. We took those out. We do have robotics and programming at 4,370 square feet. We have a pottery class, 2,400 square feet, class, an emergency medical technology at 2,500 square feet. And then if you turn the page, you see we have a pretty extensive culinary, baking, pastry, hospitality management program. That's the largest program in the school at 6,900 square feet. Then we have the 2 business and industry labs, so 2 labs that are 2,000 square feet each. A business can come in and partner with the school and have a program related to their industry in the building. And then that's it for the programs that we have in the building. That gets us to the 109,000 square feet.
Mr. Chairman?
So to answer your question, we did have at one point renewable energy. We took that out. That actually could go in a regular classroom unless you wanted to do a shop, which you could do for that too. But we don't currently have that in the program.
Robin, let me get Miss Brenda first.
Years ago, we talked about the designing, where they did sewing. Having a program out there for sewing, like the whole county had.
Speak louder so they can hear you.
Years ago, when we talked about the designers for sewing.
Sewing.
What?
Seamstress.
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 Fashion design.
We do not have that in here.
Right.
So that's something that can be added if the board chooses to.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's a need. Herman, help us, because we can offer that in the traditional.
Most classes have the option of being offered in the regular school.
Okay.
And home ec.
Right.
Just to caveat that, it's very, very hard to find someone that's going to teach that.
That's right.
Then.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Randy had one, then Dr. Emmanuel.
No, I
Got one?
didn't
You
have
good?
nothing. I was just showing you that 109 instead of 119.
Yeah, me and I'll take this off, so
Dr. Emmanuel?
how can you plan a facility without having the curriculum there? In other words, is there a curriculum committee that's planning the curriculum, so then you can plan the facility? So initially, this is how this got planned, and I know it's been 10 years, so it's got to be redone curriculum-wise. I guess my question is, the meeting tonight, Mr. Ferris, you're just reviewing what you did. My question to the superintendent is, do you have a curriculum committee that's planning what you want done there now, which would dictate the physical facility? I guess my question is there such a committee here doing that now?
That would come from the state with the CTE program. Herman, talk about that. We don't have to, because we're not really designing a new, it's already part of the state offering for CTE, correct?
We have been looking at this over the last few months of the programs that should be included in this based on the STAR jobs, based on our career interest in the course that we just administered to the 8th and 9th grade, physically here in the county. And then, of course, all of that curriculum is already designed for everything that he has mentioned in his layout.
I'm not necessarily saying what's taught in a specific course. What I'm saying is the courses we're offering. You know, when this was developed, Herman, you remember there was a group sat down and said, we need these courses, we need these courses. I'm specifically talking about courses. Then you remember that the building was designed wrapped around the courses we thought that we needed. I guess my question is that what we're doing now? We're designing the building. We're designing the building wrapped around the courses we think we need. Is that what we're doing?
Was it last week?
Last week.
That was part of last week's meeting that we had with him, and that's how he came up with this new design right here.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, that was what I want to be clear.
It's already been done.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to ask you a question, and team, from that meeting last week, help me to remember. We talked about business and industry lab, if that was a need, and I thought we had a conversation around cosmetology. Help me to remember.
We did. Cosmetology, we did. Yes. We did.
Because again, keep in mind, we're after certifications and credentials, and for that population of kids that want to be entrepreneurs and go directly into the workforce. But I remember we said, let's look at cosmetology.
Okay.
Big $50.
If I can just add one inject onto that, because we have tried 2 attempts with cosmetology and the board at our current location. But because of the restrictions that is set forth by the state of North Carolina, you have to have so many square feet per lab. And we just don't have that where we are currently at. But there is a big, big interest in that. And another thing that we wanted to be able to spread the gamut across all genders. And somebody says, well, you got a lot of traditionally male programs. Where are the traditional female programs? Even though they crisscross back and forth, we want to make sure we are serving all of our children in our county.
Okay.
Dr. Williamson, I made a note of that, and I'll make sure I get that in.
Okay, had Mr. Terry first. Mr. Terry?
I was just going to kind of piggyback off of what Dr. Emmanuel said. If I look at this STAR jobs report we had as part of our materials, associate degree in post-secondary training there's 20 different careers in those areas and 12 of them are health related. Is the health related fields mostly covered within the high schools or is that, or could that be?
Sorry.
It's okay,
Yes, we do offer our health sciences in the 5 high schools. And then our specialty of EMT and pharmacy tech, we offer at the Career Center.
Let me, if I could ask Mr. Herman, Mike, I'll get you, and I think Mr. Henry. With what y'all did last week, has it been looked at closely to, okay, we're offering this at a high school. We don't need to offer it at the technology school. So those things have been really closely looked at to where we don't have a duplication. If they can get a program at a high school, I'm gonna say every high school, then we don't need to be offering that at the technology school.
The reason that the culinary arts piece is in there is simply because the state has now met that, well, 5 years back, they mandated in order to teach culinary arts in the high school, you have to have a commercial kitchen. Well, the only school that has that currently is Lumberton High School. And we've looked every way we could to try to place commercial kitchens in the other schools, but you have to go in and cut holes in the roof, and then that's gonna void your insurance policies and all that stuff, so that's a big no. But while we are looking at the opportunity of new construction, we can do that in that facility. And students can still take Foods 1, Foods 2 at the base school and then go to a specialty area for that culinary piece their junior and senior year.
Okay. Tanner, do you have a question?
Mr. Robert, I probably wasn't clear enough on my original question. I guess I was saying if we incorporate energy efficiency into the building where I know in some instances you can get credits for that.
Oh, yes, we will definitely do that.
Okay.
That is what we, what we do.
Yeah, that's what they do.
And we're very familiar with how to do that, and do it cost effectively, try to monetize those credits to the greatest extent possible.
So you're saying this facility would be, and correct me if I'm not saying it right, a net positive zero school?
Yeah, that was it.
This building can be that, yes. Now, I will say this, it is difficult with shops sometimes because folks leave the door open and that can, a lot of energy can walk out that door. So it does get more difficult in a shop if you're not monitoring it, but it will be designed, this building will be designed so that it can be a teaching tool, right? Because you want students, if you have students that want to be engineers in the county, we want them to spend some time in this building.
Right.
Because it'll be the most advanced building in the county, probably one of the most advanced in the nation. And we want to use the building as a teaching tool. And we've done that in a lot of districts. Actually, it really started with Sandy Grove. After we did that, we realized what a powerful teaching tool Net Zero School was. We've actually gone into some of these schools and helped start an Energy Wise Club, where the students in the building actually become the ambassadors for the building. And then they compete nationally and they generally win because the building is such a powerful tool. So you do have an engineering class in here. And so I would expect that those students would be part of that curriculum.
Okay, Mr. Terry and Mr. Henry, I'll come back. Mr. Terry, do you have a question?
Yeah, are there any example facilities you can go and take a look at just to sort of get a sense of?
So for examples for the energy systems and features?
Anything you'd like to showcase?
Well, there's a lot of them. We could go look at Sandy Grove and Hope County. We could go to Myrtle Beach. And actually, a lot of folks from here did go to Myrtle Beach about 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
5 years ago. We could go to Jones County. So we have a lot of great examples, depending on what you want to look at, of buildings with similar features.
And also one more thing, if anybody gets a chance, the new School of Business at the university is open. And that is that's a nice facility. If you get a chance to go by and check it out, it's very nice. And flexible classrooms and those sorts of places are there. It's a great facility to take a look at.
And we also designed that.
It's awesome.
Good, Henry.
I came from the technical environment as a supervisor, and something that we found was very difficult to get was actually we had to send people off out of state to get on this, was IT programmers. And most industries are batch processed. You got technicians in front of a computer screen telling a valve in the field to switch to transport chemicals from one vessel to another. Well, if you tell that valve to open 25%, how do you know that's 25%? Because we regulate how many gallons in so many minutes or seconds. So it has to be precise. So I don't know if that's incorporated into this or not.
You talk about into the curriculum?
Yeah.
Well, it certainly could be because you have space for it. And you also have the flex labs, which you can always do something very different in.
And I don't mean to backtrack.
That's a great question, and it's an exciting, it's exciting.
It's the future.
Science and industry, yeah.
Chairman.
Brandon.
Mr. Superintendent, help me out with this, and I'll tell you, I'm sure you remember, Mr. Cole, when he was the principal at South Robinson, he started programs that was able to bring A&T in, and other universities started coming in, and they said if we had a technology high school, how we could gain more through them. Is that still now?
Yes, I'm assuming that partnership is available, and certainly would lend itself. We partnered with NC State and the other building that you talked about. So yes, that partnership is certainly available. Robert, I do want to ask though, will you explain a little bit more of our intent with the flex design of labs and how we link that to the job outlook, that 10-year piece that we can flip in and flip out? And then the second question is, as we look at these designs, you notice that we have not said anything about classrooms. Well, it's a lab classroom design, correct?
That's right. And they are designed as flex labs so that as, we were talking before everyone came in about 3D printing of buildings. That's happening, right?
Yeah.
Autonomous vehicles, all electric. So as technology changes, these labs have to be flexible enough to change with it. Requires a little more thought on the front end, but it makes you future-proof. So that's what the goal is, and it's exciting. It's an exciting world out there, for sure.
Craig.
Yes, sir.
Robbie, we're talking about, Craig mentioned, we surely don't want to duplicate a lot of things that we're talking about, especially with like RCC, Herman. We don't want to cross those paths. We talked about sharing enrollment and stuff like that, so we need to know what they got, what we want to offer. And like you said, well, some of the stuff you get at the high school, you might do part 1 and 2, and then you come to the career and technical to finish out your certification or whatever. So we just be careful about cross collaboration or whatever.
Barry.
One quick question. Do you think there's much opportunity to partner with some industry? Maybe we could work with some of the local industries to, maybe sponsor classrooms or certain facilities?
Sure. Yes, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
There was definitely a lot of interest in that. We actually, I don't remember there was someone in the community that was really connected with industry. I forget who it was.
Shannon Jones is our economic development.
So he had brought together, I think like 10 different businesses who all had expressed interest in from time to time being able to set up a lab and train people to help in the business. So I think there were, at least at that point, there was a lot of interest.
Mr. Dwayne.
The way things are going in this day and time and trying to find help, they would probably be standing in line in the morning wanting you to go ahead and get it done with, so that way they can get involved. You know, so this is a no-brainer right now. I mean, they're just needing help, so there's no telling how aggressive these industries and, these other people that have businesses that want to get on board pretty quick and trying to be aggressive and get in there with the stores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Williamson?
Right, we already have that letter from Ms. Jones. You remember that we got that showing local industries that we support the Career Center and that they want to be involved. So we have that list already that she sent to, if you remember.
Oh, yeah, I remember, yeah. And he wants to be involved. I've talked to him today, as a matter of fact. And I called Craig to see if he wanted to have him at this meeting to interject, because he's excited. He's the potential it can have in Robinson County. So when we talk to a collective group, you know, Robbie and the administrative team's already met, but when you talk about a broader base or bringing people on board, definitely want your community economic development involved.
That's
in that.
right.
And the entities he can bring to the table.
So Robbie, let me ask this, and I know this is a lot of planning and we're talking about different things, but at some point, the cabinet down here, the people that's met with Dr. Williamson, us, you, whoever's in there, we're gonna come in here and say, okay, this is what we're looking at. This is the classrooms we're looking at. These are the classes we're offering. This is what it's gonna be. Now, and this might not be a fair question at this time, but when we get to that point, because of the future, are we looking, and you might have said this earlier, are we gonna look and say, okay, we can afford to build 2 or 3 extra classrooms or 2 or 3 extra for that business that we don't know 2 years from now is gonna come in. But 5 years from now, they come here and say, I wanna do something here, but you don't have no space. Now, the money might not be there to do that now, but is that going to be part of the thought process of what's going on now?
So let me just jump ahead a little bit to respond to that. Your superintendent had one of the best ideas I've heard it's just the beginning of the year, but probably in the last year, today. He called and he said, we got to design the building within the money we have today, right? So we've got to be reasonable about that and we got to be realistic. But he said, is there any reason we can't go ahead and design an addition right up front, and then next year, because it's going to take us a whole year to design this building, right? So we go ahead and design the addition now, and then next year, reapply for another 50 million. So I read through the statute real quick.
Super idea.
We were very involved in writing it, and so I knew what it said. I didn't see anything that said no. So I called DPI and I said, can we do this? Could we go ahead and get the 50 million, try to get the 50 million this year, design an addition and get the other 50 million? And the response was yes.
Praise God.
Great.
So I think that that probably should be our mindset. I don't know why we wouldn't try to do that. The worst thing that could happen is we not get it.
I don't know.
We just build the basic building that we designed that's within the budget and the available funds today. And then if we don't get it, we'll just apply again the next year and the next year until we get it. So I think that was an ingenious idea. A lot of what we have here was based on the budget. So we were trying to keep this into the realm of where we thought we would be able to get funded. So with that idea in mind, I would say to respond to that, we probably definitely need to make sure we have the flex labs. And there's other things that curriculum-wise that we really need, that we're kind of not sure we can afford. Let's think about those things and let's go ahead and get them in the plan now, because you see a floor plan in here. So this is the latest thinking. So we took that program and we put it into a floor plan. And this is obviously conceptual. We've done this in the last 2 days, right? And so a real floor plan takes a year to do. This gives you a sense of how the building could be organized. And just so you know, in the orange here on the front right corner, that's the Planetarium, and the Science Center has a separate lobby from the school so that it can be used separately. But students can come in from the school, so there's a way to get in from the lobby of the school into the Science Center too. But you can see all of the curriculum areas that are listed in this program are listed here. And what we would probably do with Dr. Williamson's idea is we would probably just expand the building out a little bit this way, draw a line, that's where the addition is. So those are the extra programs. And we might even make some of these other spaces, like, let's say someone said, our construction lab is really not big enough. Right now, today, we can't afford more than that, but we want more. So maybe we make that just a little bit bigger, or y'all tell me. It really is a function of how intensive you want that program to be. All these square footages in here work. They're all at least what DPI would recommend. So, you have a really solid baseline here to work from. It's really just more what you want to add to from what we have in here. And then, sort of the last piece of this is the budget. You can see this, for this program and that floor plan I just showed you, we're about 69 million. So the grant is 50 million. We're getting 5 million for the planetarium, so there's 55 million. So that leaves us a shortfall of about 15 million. But again, with Dr. Williamson's idea, I think that's a really solid idea. I really.
Craig, not only Dr. Williamson's idea, we also can explore the county commissioners, Robbie, and the county management. I mean, if you need another 15 million, I mean, sure, if we can get another 50 million next year, 30 million, or whatever we want. But the county commissioners, most of the ones I've talked to lately are all on board.
That's what
And
he
we've been
said.
doing things to contribute to moving forward, and we have a plan. So I would think that some of them would sure be willing to contribute more. Or inclined to think that anyhow.
Terry?
Just got a quick point to make one of the things that I want us to kind of make sure that we don't skip on is this science center. Because that science center, if there's going to be elementary kids coming to the planetarium, and half of them is going to be in the planetarium, and the other half's going to be in the science center, that experience that they have is going to encourage them to participate in our other programs later. So I think that's really going to be important. You said something a few minutes ago, a makerspace with some 3D printers and just getting them interested in the CTE area, I think is going to ensure our sustainability. So that's going to be really, really vital. And also, we're talking about some careers here that are a lot of them are on the outside. So what, is there something that can be done, facilities, on the exterior just to make sure that we're not trying to retrofit something later? I've saw it at community colleges, especially with like a few years ago with the lineman programs. They may have to go in a parking lot somewhere, or, they wasn't anticipating that huge boom. But is there a way in which we can design an outdoor space to sort of be future-proof in that way?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Brandt, then Stanley, then Dr. May. Mr. Brandt?
I'm going to make a request in line with what you just said about the science center. The more floor space we have, the more flexibility we're going to have in terms of what we can roll in and roll out of there. So if there's any way to squeeze even that 250 square feet you were going to throw away a minute ago, stick that in the corner, please, because the more space we have to operate in, the better able we're going to be to accommodate the kids. I had a thought also earlier about the CTE school itself, the technology high school. When we bring third graders in from Fort Worth, are we going to be able to let them tour the high school and see some of the cool things happening there?
That's the plan as part of the career development that we are currently doing. We've already talked about that option. And, I heard people say, well, you sure you want that? I said, yeah, it's a great thing to have them both in the same location, because when those third graders come, they don't have to make another trip to go look at something that they might be interested in down the road. It's exposure. Children only know what they can see and been exposed to. If they've never been exposed to the courses that we're offering currently at the Career Center, they don't know about it. I mean, they come down there and say, oh, I didn't know y'all offered that. But if they start to see in that third, fourth, fifth, wherever, then by the time they get to that 8th grade and start making that 4-year plan for their career path, they already know what's available.
Yeah, we always say, if you get them excited about learning, they don't need us anymore. They're doing it on their own.
So along those lines, Susan, talk to us about STEM clubs in every building that we've.
Our goal next year is we're gonna have a robotics club at every high school. We're gonna start kids with coding, even in the elementary schools, get them started, because most of these jobs in career and technical have a STEM component behind it. I was talking to Mr. Herman earlier about farm bots. So even farming is going robotic. So we've got to get kids excited. We get them excited in elementary school, it carries over to middle school, and then they're beating down the doors to go to the career and technical.
Okay, Mr. Henry?
I would make a recommendation that we look at the opportunities that we think that will advance into the future and make them more accessible to the areas that we can add on. And it's ironic, Mike and I were out at Red Springs, the athletic field today, and I talked with the construction engineer boss. He said he couldn't find anybody to hire because they didn't understand GPS and fractions, because he had bulldozers, different types of equipment that runs off of GPS, and it levels the ground. And the football field was so level you could roll a marble on it. But young people today don't understand. They're no help to him. You can't the one person can run a bulldozer. You sit in that bulldozer and then you program it and it runs it. Same way with farming now. When you put nutrients in the ground, it runs off of GPS because they take soil samples. Different, like if a 30-acre plot, they take different soil samples. And that GPS from those results is put in the computer, tells them how much fertilizer to increase or decrease. That's new technology.
Dr. Mann, do you have a question?
I just had a couple of statements. Maybe I'm overlooking it. Help me find in my brain where you would teach, which one of these categories would you teach, like the programming with Robbie, like Cisco programming? Where is that in here?
Network engineering.
Network engineering. Another thing, and it may be here, Mr. Harmon or whomever, would you consider doing something about entrepreneurships and leadership? Would you consider, where is that, or it may be embedded in something for those children? Let it be a course.
We have entrepreneurship classes, but those are offered at the base high schools already.
Teaching children how to dress and make decisions and all that.
That's part of our simulated workplace, yes, ma'am.
So it's a course.
There is a course for entrepreneurship itself, but simulated workplace is injected throughout all science programs, which teaches them the resume writing, the interview skills, how to dress.
Soft skills, hard skills.
Yes, ma'am. All the soft skill programs or the skills needed, how not to use your cell phone while you're at work.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We have cell jails that we put in our classrooms where they put their cell phone in a plastic container with a pop lid, and it's called a cell jail, so that they don't be tempted to actually look at it or whatever. Then we treat that as a work facility, and just like on the job, you get a short break in about halfway during the day or whatever. Halfway during the class, a lot of the teachers have incorporated that break where they can have a 5-minute break, use their phone, charge their phone or whatever, put it back in, and then we continue with the work.
I like that one.
Great.
That is really needed.
Mr. Gentry, then Mr. Dwayne, please, you had a question. Mr. Gentry?
Mike was talking about having a dialogue with the industrial commissioner, the industrial staff of our county. I'd like to ask about the feasibility of establishing prototype equipment, and we just mentioned robotics within the classroom setting so that the students actually learn on the particular equipment that's in the industrial buildings. I was just, it's been several years ago since we're out at Campbell Soup, went with a group out there, and I was just totally fascinated with the methodology that they have going on out there. And I realized there's not enough room to full scale, but could part of the study be exploring, again, in miniature or prototype of equipment facilities that the students actually learn on the equipment that they'll be working on at the sites where they eventually are employed?
That's batch process.
That is the idea behind the flex labs. That's exactly what those were intended to be. And it sounds like we have 2 flex labs in here now. And it sounds like that might be something we explore, maybe being something we would expand. It sounds like there's a lot of interest in that, so we'll look at that.
Dwayne, do you have a question?
I was just going to piggyback off what Mr. Henry said. A while ago, you were talking about working on the ball field, and they had certain equipment, that pretty much kind of handles itself or whatever.
Yep.
So is that correct?
Yep. But they have to be a human sitting in that equipment.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem that we have right here is, of course, it'll come, but you kind of have to be careful with the kind of technology we get. Technology is great. You can't beat technology. Have somebody to go build a house, they'll pull a string and level it all day long for you. You kind of see where I'm going now?
And that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Don't know how to do it. Can't do fractions.
Yeah. So, what's going to be hard to be adjusted to, I shouldn't say, is when you have old school, like this right here, and then turn around and you've got the technology.
A lot of kids train.
Compared to the old way right here. How's that going to end up meshing together? So
Right.
They're going to have to complement each other.
Exactly. Can't put it together.
Yeah, the skill level for jobs is very, very high. It's moving higher. Even in our firm, we used to have, half of our firm used to be draftsmen. And they might have 30 years experience, but they were draftsmen. We today don't have any draftsmen in our company. Everyone in the company is a licensed professional, or they're moving towards licensure. And the reason is they have to be a very high skill level to use the technology and the equipment and know what they're doing. Very different. So good point.
Mr. Ferris, continue on.
So, okay, so we have I think I mentioned this, we have the $69 million budget. We'll work to programs and lay out a building that fits within whatever the number is, y'all tell me it needs to be. And as was said, the county commissioners are part of this conversation. And then we'll program this addition. If everyone's in agreement that that makes sense, we'll program this addition for that future pot of money that we would be going after. And I think that's a great.
Dr. Williamson?
So Robert, with that, one of our intent tonight was the application with that March 15th deadline. And so one of the intent for the meeting tonight, knowing that this is not final, can we move forward with the application of what we've talked about and tentatively agree on?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And so then that would bring up, to your point, when will we get back together? And I'm saying, do we have Erica or Robbie, once we submit that application, do we know when they will make that award?
Well, I don't think we know for sure, but they've said they're going to move quickly because they know there's a lot of districts that are waiting on that decision.
Okay.
So a month, 2 months, maybe.
Right. So again, our intent tonight was to have this conversation for the application moving forward. Once we get the award, then we begin to pull in and we come back and finalize some things at that point. in the end, though, we have something to think about in process, right? And a lot of complications.
On that, Mr. Craig.
Go ahead.
Mr. Grady.
Mr. Grady.
I'm here. Go ahead.
But we need to bring it Tuesday night to vote on it, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All you're doing tonight is making a recommendation for your board meeting on Tuesday night.
Okay.
One quick question on this right here. Okay, so for the application process, does it affect the location? Do we have to have the
You
location?
missed that first part,
Missed that
Dwayne.
part.
Put both locations on there.
They're putting both locations in on this year, and then we can come back and decide
Okay,
that.
so they're just gonna put both of them on it?
Right.
Decide, okay,
He's gonna check both locations, Dwayne Bennett's gonna check on the tax credits.
right, I got you.
One of them we know applies and one we don't think.
Right, and what my thing was is I didn't know if we need to have a concrete location during the process, the plan process. I didn't know.
On the road here.
Concrete on that or not.
There's nothing in the rules that says
Is the application.
you have two options.
Right, okay.
Mr. Grady, let me follow up with a question now. Mr. Ferris has been approved, his company, to go ahead and assist with the application.
Yes.
Okay, so now, we sit here and talked about different kind of parts of the building, so is there anything now that he's doing that? We just maybe clarified some of that tonight. So what would we be voting on tonight to make a recommendation to the full board?
You're just making a recommendation tonight on the presentation that he just made on the application.
Okay.
So, Ms. Grady, let me ask you a question, just for clarification. At our last board meeting, we approved the application process not to exceed $50,000, correct?
You approved Robbie working
Right.
as the architect on the application process not to exceed $50,000.
And that's what this is. So then where are we on the RFQ in terms of that? That's got to run 30 days, because I think the next real vote for us is, do we approve whatever that design architect group? Where are we on the RFQ?
Robbie got me the information on the RFQ, what we need in it. I think maybe Friday, Robbie, I think I'm right when I say that. So, I mean, we can have the RFQ and format ready for you on Tuesday. I'm not sure. Are you saying you want to do it before you submit your application?
No, that's not necessary, right?
Yeah.
So again, we've approved this work already. So
this
as-
work.
As it
this
relates
work-
to our board meeting on Tuesday night, I don't think we need to take a vote on anything unless it's RFQ, if we need to take a look at that. Once that run its course in 30 days, we come back and determine what group do we want to design this building for us.
Well, here's the thing. Let's not get ahead of ourselves now. We don't even have, we have not even approved what we want to go in the application process. My suggestion would be you get through the application process before you get to the RFQ.
So that's this. That's to approve of this.
It's a plan of action.
That's to approve of this right here, correct? Oh, what are you talking about?
What he just said.
We're sitting here thinking, Mr. Grady, if you have any more input, because just to make sure that we're able to cover what we need to cover this coming Tuesday night.
So we voted, the last meeting, you voted to, because you're allowed to retain an architect, like we've retained, Rob in this instance, and go under the exemption in the statute as long as the fee's not more than $50,000. So what you did at the last meeting takes you through the application process. And takes Robbie's work through the application process. As far as the design, the next phase is the RFQ. And what I want to see in place is what we finally put in the application in order to fully develop that RFQ.
You understand, Rob?
I do understand, yeah. Yes, sir. So I guess then the next question is, when will you have the application completed?
When will Robbie have the application completed?
Well, if I understand what you just said, that's how we write the RFQ.
Right.
Well, Dr. Williamson, I'm comfortable with everything we had this last version. We just went over the design, the budget, all of that. Dash in future edition on there. And I'm comfortable with this, so we could, if you're okay, I think we could submit the application based on this. We can still make changes later, that's not saying it's set in stone, but I'm comfortable with that. If y'all want to give me any feedback that y'all have gotten tonight, I can go ahead and get that incorporated and we can get the application done. Again, that was our intent tonight, is can we live with this for the application process?
Will this cover, will this dot all the i's and cross all the t's? Will this, I mean, what all does the application process entail? I mean,
This will cover it.
this will cover.
The main thing they want is, they want a sketch. They want to know that you bought property, which you have bought 2 pieces. They want a budget and a schedule, and I can provide all of that based on what we did the other day and what I've heard tonight.
It's just like building a house and borrowing money. You're gonna have some changes in your bathroom or your bedroom or whatever. So even though this is a lot larger than a house, does that kind of make sense,
It
Robbie?
does, that makes sense. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So there's room for that to where you don't have no hiccups to where the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. And it doesn't stop the process or anything. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Mr. Randy?
I want to say this and I'm saying on behalf of the construction committee for tonight. I've sit here and listened, and it's like Dwayne said, it's just like building a house, but building it a whole lot bigger. And when I understand every board member here has had input tonight, and it's been appreciated. I'm sure Mr. Robbie and us for general information. But I do want to say this, that every board member here has a checkbook. Right now, Ms. Erica's got ours. I also want to say every square foot is gonna cost. All right, Mr. Robbie, I'm trying to throw it out there, okay? And in this process of building it, we don't want to have wasted space. Period. I understand the part about the addition, but I want the first part. That's the initial part. We've been working on it since 2013. It's time. If we're approved for it, we may be doing this all in vain, Mr. Robbie. I'm just saying, but I hope that someone will have some mercy on us. Let's put it that way. To go through what this school systems went through in 16 and 18, and the things that were lost, and to bring stability back, and also careers that these kids that were in kindergarten at this time, I'm just saying, close to the time we get it built, they'll be close to graduating. Or some, in high school at least. So that's my say for tonight. Just remember, Miss Erica's got the checkbook.
Now, let me ask you. Robert, let me ask you, with the application driving this, is it possible, feasible that you can have the application completed by when? Because it may mean we have a special call board meeting to approve the application and that work, so then that we can start the RFQ process. Give us some sense of when you might have that completed. Tuesday night would be great, but I don't know.
I can get you a draft within a week. Obviously, your team's gonna have to review it. And, today is,
It is
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
maybe next Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll get you a draft.
It's gonna be a special call meeting, so we're good.
And we can discuss Tuesday, depending on where we are, and if we need to have a special call meeting, we could maybe set that up next Tuesday.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I'd rather him push the envelope than us do.
Well, that's, give him some time. Ms. Gentry?
At one time, my memory serves me, there was some discussion about the percolability of the soil in those two respective sites. Has anything definitive come from that?
Mr. Yu?
I do know the site at 7-Eleven, all of that was tested. Everything was
Clear.
Mr. Ferris, some of his organization and go engineering firms, all that.
So we're good with that? Okay.
So theoretically, Robbie, if you have everything by Tuesday night or sometime Tuesday, you get it to Dr. Williamson, you'll have all that, you'll have the answer to the tax credit and everything. You'll be able to supply all that information. Okay.
Anything else? So we need no motion or anything tonight, just work on this other information, we're good to go. Anyone else? Mr. Henry?
Mr. Chair, if the board allow me, I would like to announce Severio's funeral is this coming Thursday. From 1 to 2 is viewing, 2 to 3 is the funeral at Freedom Calvary, Faith of Calvary. It's off of Carthage Road out of Lumberton.
Okay. And Dr. Robert, I'm gonna mention, since you were curriculum, a lot of you might have seen this. Tomorrow's February the 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Groundhog Day.
Someone had put out the have kids, and I know this is spur of the moment, but if kids did a time capsule tomorrow, that's first grade, I think. Tomorrow's 2/2/22, and having to open it when they're a senior, 3/3/33, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen that somewhere. It's kind of a little play with numbers. You know, them things occur ever so often, but I think that's the way it was told now. I think I'm saying that correct, but that's some interesting numbers for some first graders down the road. And what we're doing tonight is going to affect those first graders, folks. Ms. Gentry?
I need to raise an issue based on what Henry just shared. We originally had and as of now, a policy committee meeting Thursday at noon. That's what I thought I have in my calendar. I don't know why I've got noon.
9 to 12.
12. And obviously, probably most of us are going to want to attend that service. And even with that time frame, that may be pushing it. So Dr. Robert or Mr. Bobby or whoever else can provide some input. Do we need, in view of that, do we need to postpone the policy committee meeting?
I'll be over at 12.
How long does it usually last, Mr. Gentry?
2 hours usually.
It'll be over.
I think you'll have enough time. I mean, that's just me talking now. Thing starts at 1. If you come and you're prepared, I think you should be able to
That's right.
proceed, I would think.
Okay. I just want to put that out there.
That's what I think.
Henry?
Also, board members that would like to meet the state superintendent Truitt. Ms. Truitt, she'll be in Pembroke from 6 to 7 Thursday, Friday night.
Thursday night.
Thursday night at Metcom, 763 Comtech Drive.
Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mike, second by Vontae. All in favor, say aye. Aye.